Hey guys, welcome to Monday Mindset Mojo. Man, we've got a show lined up for you. Have you ever wondered if you're thinking too much when the real issue is actually thinking about things in the wrong way? True, healthy cognition doesn't chase the smoke of emotions. It really targets that cognitive fire. And our episode today is really a deep dive into how to rewire your brain, reprogram those neurons, harness friction as fuel, and really learn to clarify your purpose and stop outsourcing your mindset to all that noise in life around you. And so we're going to dive in today with three wonderful guests. The Mental Reboot, my faithful friend and co-host. He is a mindset mentor. He is a host with the most. He helps people take back control from those unconscious loops. He uses some really accessible brain-based reprogramming strategies. Matthias Brückner is here, and you guys will see their handles from the X platform there, so don't hesitate to reach out to them, follow their accounts if you see something, a way that they can really bring value to your life. Matthias is a change agent. He's a hypnotist, one of my favorite things. He teaches leaders how to rewire their subconscious and how to convert inner resistance into clarity that drives profit. And who could need a bit more profit in our economy today? And last but not least, Roman Simon. He's a modern warrior philosopher. Roman uses fasting, he uses fitness, he uses techniques on developing mental discipline that helps people forge a path of cognitive toughness. And you know, in the world we live in today, it's no time for mental weakness. It's no time for a fixed mindset. So, guys, hey, welcome. It's really, really wonderful to see you here today, and I look forward to a fabulous conversation. We're going to start down here with this gentleman that I mentioned last. And Roman, tell us a bit about your work and how did you get started in this particular journey that you're on with fasting and fitness and mental toughness?
Hello, friends. Um, so uh, One day I just woke up and I understood that I don't want to live the life I was living before. I understood that I was weak and had nothing that I want in my life. So I was living some strange life, which is not what I wanted. And at that point, I became interested in how to how to create the life I want to live in, how to create a life which will be exciting for me, and how to make it challenging, and how to discover myself, how to do things that I'm afraid of doing, how to discover my fears, how to understand myself. And I just started exploring myself and the world around me and doing things I was afraid of doing. So slowly, I changed everything, my habits, my understanding, my food diet, and I started communicating with people. And slowly, everything started changing. So now I'm on that path somewhere in the middle, trying to discover myself and the universe.
Wow. Well, no small order trying to discover the universe. So, Roman, what's one of the hardest things when you got started on this journey? What have you found for you, at least, was one of the hardest things to change, to get a handle of?
Uh, I think that everything new is hard. Like whatever we are not used to doing is hard, and the more energy it requires, and the more threatening it is to our evolutionary settings, the harder it is. So, like for me, it was communication with people because I was socially not free in my past. So it was the hardest part, and it took several years to open up and to start approaching strangers and talking to some people, new people. Other things like physical things were not that hard because I was used to doing things alone. Like I was working with myself from childhood. So
Now, what do you mean working with yourself from childhood?
uh, like you know, it is called like introvert. I don't like these terms, but as an introvert, let's say, I was used to being with myself and learning and trying new things like alone. It was not threatening to me.
Ah,
But yeah, people were threatening to me, and I was afraid. This was my hardest problem.
yeah, yeah. Often, guys, you've noticed in your life that the presence of fear, we interpret that as a barrier. We interpret that as danger, but the presence of fear does not equal the presence of danger. And so once you get that straight, it really amazes me the world of possibility that it really opens up. And Richard, welcome, Richard, my dear friend Richard. Good to see you here. And if you guys have a question or a thought for our panel, I would love for you to ask it. I'll pull your chat on the feed here so we can all benefit from that. And the question that you have in your head is probably the same question another bunch of people will soon be to 100 viewers here today. That all those other viewers have too, or certainly a great percentage of them. But thank you so much, Roman. Let's go to Matthias. Tell us about yourself
Hello.
and how did you get started, and what was one of the biggest hurdles you had to overcome, my friend?
Yeah, hello. I'm Matthias. I'm from Germany, 48 years old. I'm a father and I'm long time in IT and I'm interested in multiple topics of self-development. And it started maybe with the age of 25 that I discovered several self-development books and was fascinated by the topic itself. And as life goes by, you wonder why nothing happens uh, from within itself, and you find yourself sometimes in the same places, in the same habit loops, stuck, and in the same reactions to different inputs. And as I'm a analytical guy, I wanted to dive deeper and resolve such things. And it wasn't until I discovered hypnosis and self hypnosis for me as a shortcut to bypass maybe years and years of therapy. Um, how do I draw it? I was raised in the GDR, and it was a very known socialism country. And the programming you received there as a child is nothing less than, which may lead to uh, a strange kind of self perception. You know, even as a child, what you can talk and are allowed to talk about in public, and it doesn't fit your own mind, it doesn't fit your own thoughts, and it was always the separation, and you needed to take care of it. And so it led to maybe a same place like Roman was, a place of being alone with your own thoughts, being alone in your self development, and even being alone in growing up. And this didn't change until I married, until I had kids, and life meant to change to another way, because sometimes as you think you have your life together, I needed to handle a divorce. I was separated from my children. I needed to sell my home and start from scratch again. And this was the time I had enough and wanted to change in a very persistent way. And that's why I'm very into hypnosis and self hypnosis.
Well, what's something that you found that really, from the world of hypnosis, that really helped you out there, Matthias?
Um, I think it started with handling anxiety issues at first. It was the topic of reframing the things from a negative perception into a positive one, and the understanding that you are deeply able to reframe everything because nothing is real. It may seem that way, but it isn't. Only our perceptions of what we are called reality is that what may we call as real, but neither the past nor the future is set in stone. And as you know, even two people who perceived the same moment in the past may have very, very different opinions about it. And that's one hint that you are totally free in being yourself and reframe it the way you like. And if you become aware of this possibility, you have the whole world in front of you to perceive the rest of your life in a very positive and energized way.
It really is the case where we do have the power of perception, and the power of that perception, that is when we choose it, when we sculpt it. When you're sculpting your perception right now in this moment, you're really sculpting the future. Because I really love
Of
what you
course.
said about the self and thinking about different people can perceive things in a different way. Now, let me get a little bit spooky with you guys about that, and we're going to go to a TMR here in just a moment, but I didn't want to lose this. That really, when you can have a conversation with this self that is part of you against this self, which is another part of you. And so it's really yourself having a conversation with yourself about your thought processes. And by the way, that's one of the
Yeah.
wonderful things that I find so useful with hypnosis. I'm a board certified clinical hypnotherapist. It's something I started doing back in 1997 or 98, I lose track. But literally, the power that you have of honing in on this grouping of thought processes as opposed to this grouping of thought processes. And then another thing that Matthias said was, uh, uh, well, I would phrase it moving away from some of those thoughts of childhood. Because here's the thing, guys and gals, the thoughts that you had during your childhood may have gotten you so far, but then
Hmm.
they may lose their utility. The way that you were thinking a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades ago may need to be transformed to consider new things. And so this is the power of hypnosis. By the way, it's probably not as spooky as you think. I talk about hypnosis a lot. I'm going to get some of that from the expert today, Matthias. I'd love to hear what he has to say. But before we dig into that, let's go to my good friend TMR. TMR, tell us about yourself and how you got involved in the particular area of work that you're in. And well, I mean, I know you may not like the term. Sometimes I don't. Kind of been a social media influencer. You know, when you put yourself out there, there are people that listen, and I believe that we have a responsibility to say things that are actionable. Those actionable things should be based in research. They should not be based in some pseudo psychological nonsense and colloquialisms. And so I think that we have a responsibility, and I'm really, really supportive and thrilled that TMR is one of the best accounts that I know on social media that does just that. TMR, tell us about yourself.
Well, I appreciate that introduction there. And yes, I completely agree. My goal, at least, is to try to distill information that is actionable, yes, but also as most accurate as possible. And that's why I'm very specific when I make posts, because I try now to only make a post when it has the most truth, the most accuracy, which that's really important to me. Glad to be here, joined by two incredible gentlemen that I have now just met for the first time. I'm TMR. Feel free to call me TMR. And this account was never meant to be any sort of, let's just call it a personality account. It was purely just meant to be a place where I was like, okay, X is changing. It actually just changed to X when I made this account. And the reason why I originally joined was because I was really starting to rapidly expand into the wild world of the mind. I was getting very, very interested. So very similar. I kind of hit, I guess you call it a roadblock in life, and this happened pretty much right as we were coming out of the wonderful era that we exited, let's say around 2020 to the next couple years, just hitting rock bottom, and then more so on a mental standpoint, like where are we going as a world? Where am I going as an individual? And learnings from when I had taken basically a college class in high school, AP Psych, started kind of bumping back into my head. And I was like, what was this funny stuff that I was learning that I really was interested in? I did really well. And I kind of pushed off at a certain point because I never thought, I'd go anywhere near this direction. And it started becoming more and more important. So it's very interesting with like the social circles, the algorithms, all the things that we interact with on a daily basis. You could be extremely detached from anything like this information. A lot of people think, oh, therapy, shrinks. I'm not going to a shrink. Or, this stuff it's woo woo. They're like, oh, just thinking about your thoughts, that's not going to do anything. You got to get out there. Got to pick up something heavy. But it's really interesting. The more you expose yourself to information, the more you expose yourself to people, ideas, perspectives, not only the more will it start to either make sense, or start bringing up more questions, but the more you're going to start rubbing against that same information. And it's funny because that's one of the biggest takeaways that I've learned from this is that when we really want to start making change, you have to start wanting to make change and then exposing yourself to what it takes to make the change. So on my page, I talk a lot about habits because it's one of the easiest ways to kind of break, I guess you could say this area of information down is being able to understand, okay, we're human beings. We kind of have these almost like computers in our brains, and we can run programs. And we could decide to use old programs. We could decide, hey, you know what? I want to update my software. And that's kind of where the mental reboot came from, is because I started to see the parallels between computers, processing chips, and then the human brain. There are some very big differences, but it's an interesting comparison that you can make, and you can start to leverage some of the ways that computers work, and installing programs and using programs and modifying programs, whatever you want to call it, and how we can install habits in our life and how we can use that to our advantage, how we can look at our thought processes. And thanks to Dr. Heath, with all the wonderful information that we get on almost a daily basis in Midday Mindset, and of course in the timeline and Mindset Masterclass, that's really awesome. It's just helped me refine my perspectives, my ideas, the ways that I saw this information, fill those gaps. So I think that's a beautiful thing about shows like this, about X in general, that we can just fill in those gaps. We can test our hypotheses. We can try out new habits, new ideas. And that's what I love about you, Dr. Heath, is that you bring this all together. You find ways to bring incredible minds together, not just the blue ones. And so I'm happy to be here.
Well, TMR, thank you so much. I love that phrase. I'm going to type that in a moment. I think that's a very trademark worthy phrase. Downloadable habits, downloadable habits. And instead of downloading habits on autopilot, and understand this, guys, the way the brain works, repetition equals programming. If you repeat something 2, 3, 27 times, that, my friends, is programming. Don't be shocked if you begin to not honor your bedtime, that bedtime becomes your new bedtime, even if it's 1 a.m. Don't be shocked that if you start sleeping in, that becomes your new wake up time. Don't be shocked that if you spend a lot of hours sitting on the couch eating Fritos, that becomes your new habit. The brain really does not care what you decide to make a habit, because the brain is so pattern hungry, it's just looking for a pattern. And you heard Roman talk about earlier how he started to rethink some of his patterns, and Matthias and TMR too, how they rethought their patterns. I have a pattern every morning, and personally, I'm going through a very difficult time in my life. I'll talk about that later. But yeah, even us clinicians have a difficult time in our life, you know. But it is these healthy patterns, these healthy habits that I have downloaded, like getting up at the same time, making my bed, brushing my teeth, drinking my morning drink here. Yeah, that's my Therapy Bites cup. You can grab one of those on my Shopify store. All these things, make sure that the patterns you follow are patterns that point your life in a healthy direction. And the first step to changing anything is awareness of these behavior loops. So, guys, let's kind of segue into that. What do you think about behavior loops? How do you identify them in your life? And one of those, by the way, can be learned helplessness. Learned helplessness. And by the way, just for I have a question from Sam Alancha, the pastor. Sam, thank you for being here, Sam. What does this process look like if someone is approaching it from a religious, spiritual perspective? Because religious and spiritual, I think that there may be a differentiation between those. I think that you can be religious about anything. I like to think of spiritual as a much deeper, connective thing that holds a lot of power. But religion, people say, you know, they're not religious. Well, some people are religious about not being religious. They're religiously non-religious. So I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about that. Pastor's question there, I think it's a wonderful question. What does this process look like that we're talking about if someone is approaching it from a religious, spiritual perspective? Roman, what do you think?
Hmm. It's a very broad topic, and I have my personal unique views, and it will take several hours to dive deep into these things. I don't believe anything. I don't believe. I try to understand the world. I don't believe things. So religion is something I don't believe in, and spirituality also, it's something I don't understand, because in my in my worldview, it doesn't have place, and like everything uh, works without these concepts. So I can't say anything about these topics.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people in the audience, I think that they may be of the same mindset. I'm a believer personally. It has a lot of power in my life. But before I get to that, let's go around the room. I mean, this is a show about perspective. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's almost like a buffet of wisdom. So, you folks that are watching, choose carefully what you want from the buffet. If it works for you, it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. And I'll tell my story about my faith momentarily, since the pastor had a great question about that. Matthias, what do you think? Then we'll go to TMR.
Yeah. Um, I came around several thought ideas um, when you uh, discuss such a question. Um, I think it plays a huge role in a spiritual and religious approach when you're open to surrender to anything and to accept fully that you are the person you are right now, so that you do not ignore any aspect of yourself and surrender fully in this being you are born into as a spiritual being carrying around your physical body. And to think this idea further, I believe that we are not only beings in a physical body, we are spiritual beings too, and we are not aware of this beautiful fact, because I believe nothing what you think of, no idea is within itself new or come from your own mind. It's some behind it a spiritual brain or connection where you download something from, and you draw ideas, thoughts for yourself from this collective consciousness. And this idea gives you so much freedom to think about a huge and very, very broad approach to life.
Matthias, thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate what Kim said. She likes your perspective about not ignoring any aspect of yourself. When I was doing quality assurance surveys, I was taught by my dear friend Stuart Lawyer, who's up in Olympia, Washington. He just retired so he can spend some time in his boat out on the ocean. For whatever reason, someone would want to do something like that. But so Stuart taught me about the different domains of life: social, emotional, physical, spiritual, occupational, educational, and cognitive. Gosh, maybe that was 7. I lose count. And so for me, yeah, spiritual is a part of it. And I want to go to TMR momentarily, but the value that I see, Pastor, in religion in this process is that religion is a routine. It's really one of those patterns in life that we talk about. When you wake up in the morning, like I did this morning, and you really didn't want to get out of bed, and I didn't, because this is my first day in 17 years without my study buddy Scruffy. Scruffy went on to be with his family yesterday. It's a very hard thing for us, me and my wife. We've cried so hard that our heads hurt. And so the thing is, I have that roadway that I have developed, that habit-based roadway that I follow. And my religion is part of that. It's this thing, and then it's this thing, and it's this thing, and it doesn't matter what emotions are present. The only thing that matters is the next thing. And so I do a devotional in the morning. I did it at 5:30 this morning. I put up the dishes before that. I'm very religious about putting up my dishes out of the dishwasher. And then I did the next thing. And then I'll do the next thing. And so the thing that I think that religion affords people is the next step. What's the next step? When my father was killed in 2006, he fell at work and he died. When my father was killed, I was attending religious services regularly, and my dad died on a Saturday. The next day was time to get up and take that next step of being in that religious service. So I did that. And part of that is the grieving process of doing the next thing, even in the presence of the grief. And so I'm not looking for the grief to go away. I'm not running away from it. I'm not moving around it. You can't outrun your grief, guys. You can't outrun it. What you can do is you can move through it with the next thing. And then the next thing was, when it comes to my father, was the funeral process. Yesterday for Scruffy, it was the burial process. And so I did that. I dug a hole in the backyard, and we said our goodbyes, and I kissed him on his forehead, and I told them that I loved him, and and now we move on. Now we continue. The thing about religion in life is I believe it has the power to give people a lattice work on doing that, a lattice work on how to continue. Did I want to, no offense to you guys, but did I want to do this show today? Absolutely not. It was in my mind to say, guys, I had a tough day yesterday. I'm not up for it. We're going to need to postpone. but I know where that road leads, and that road diverges from this path that I have made for myself. And I simply do not allow that. I laid in bed, and this is the first morning to get out of bed where I didn't hear the pitter patter of Scruffy's feet. But I got out of bed in honor of the routines that he loves so much. He was such a pattern-based puppy. You know, he got up at the same time. He went to bed at the same time. He ate his meals the same time every day at 3:30, or wanted to. You know, sometimes Dad was running late. I sat on the stool that I'm sitting on right now 1,000 times to feed him. I sat on this stool in his honor today, doing this show because this is my pattern. And so when you live out your pattern, whether you call it religion or something else, think of what you're honoring by doing that, who you're honoring by doing that. And one of the things that you're honoring are those roadways that you have engineered in your brain. Don't neglect those roadways. Those are those downloadable habits that TMR talked about. This is the roadway that Roman talked about when he began to examine his life. And I believe it's been probably a lifelong examination since then, Roman, and Matthias also. And we'll talk a bit about more of that later. But let me go to TMR on the question the pastor had, and welcome my wonderful friend Derek. Man, what a handsome young man there. You know, Matthias, I don't know. We could have, or Roman, guys, we could have like a beard off competition and see who has the best beard today. I don't know, man. Derek's will be hard to beat. So thank you, Derek, for being here. And good morning, Kim, member of the Masterclass community. Jackie Sue, love to see Jackie Sue, wonderful member of Mindset Masterclass and a wonderful subscriber on X. And I appreciate those condolences. Yeah, you know, I'll have to say that the grief will be with me for, well, you know, in some ways forever. I'm working my way through the show today. I could cry. I have cried again so hard that my head hurts. And I do that. Why? I do that in honor of Scruffy. Grief is the tax we pay for having had the privilege of having had a meaningful, deep relationship. So why would I want less of that? You know, why would I want less of
Wonderful
that?
reframing.
We're going to do a space on grief. We're going to do a space 1 week from today. I think I'm going to need a week before I can pull it off. So we're going to do a space on grief, and I'm going to spend the next week kind of, you know, reviewing and grieving and going through what I call the phantom limb pain of grief. And then we'll do a space. So if you know some folks that are struggling, that'll be next Monday at 12 o'clock Central Standard Time on X. And I appreciate your condolences. And Richard, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate that. See, I wasn't even going to talk about this, but it came up. I think it may be of some use. And so never hesitate to share personal things. You never know who you might be helping. And again, Derek says, "Hola, como están, amigos?" And I'm sure everybody knows what that means. Wonderful man, wonderful guy. Torsum says, "Hey there, Torsum." Torsum says, "Good day, good evening, ladies and gentlemen." And so thank you very much. So I want to go to TMR. TMR, what about the pastor's question here about, you know, the process of how does religion and spirituality kind of figure into some of the things that we're talking about?
No, that's a great question, and I wanted to say I'm sorry for your loss there, Dr. Heath. Scruffy was
Well,
a wonderful,
thank you very much.
wonderful
Hey, Tim,
dog.
I can't hear you too well right now. If you can turn your gain up, my friend.
Yeah, what about now?
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so once again, sorry for both of your loss, you and your wife. Scruffy was a wonderful addition to Midday Mindsets, and I will definitely be thinking about Scruffy. But that's a good question there, Pastor. I think that, you know, from the standpoint of like understanding religion as the, you know, believing in something, let's say a little more traditional sense, I think that it can fit perfectly hand in hand. And I didn't understand this for a while. And I'll say, first of all, Dr. Heath, you're a great example in many ways, especially with how the show must go on and how you've always described that many, many different times. And it just makes complete sense, you know, learning what I've learned now. But obviously, in social media and TV shows and whatever, it's always portrayed like, oh, if something happens, just go sit on the couch for about a month and a half, eat junk food, do whatever. And it's just so counterproductive. And it, quote unquote, feels great in the moment, but it usually ends up um, just spiraling to something else. It doesn't always. However, it's definitely creating a rep. And more and more things like this happen, because you don't know how many are going to happen during your lifetime. Now you have a reference to point back to. And will you do this again? Will you do it again, but will you do it times 2? Will you do it again? Will you do it times 3? So it's really important that we pay attention to these patterns that develop. And even if something's a one-off, you don't know when that next opportunity to do it will come. And you might take it. And you might take it again. And then eventually you start getting into, new, let's just call them programs that you're utilizing. But when we look at the religious aspect of this, I think it's really interesting how, some even refer, so I'm a believer as well. So like from in the Bible, some kind of refer to Jesus as like, one of the not one of the first, but one of the most influential psychologists. But it's interesting how there are many, many different pieces of scripture in the book itself, like, and I'm not going to quote it correctly, but what's the word? Where your treasure is, your heart lies there as well. That type
Yeah,
of thing.
where
And
your
what?
treasure is, there will your heart be also. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
and
yes.
Tim R, that's what we talk about a lot when it comes to our value system, because our values are our treasures. It depends on
Hmm.
how high we rate each of those values, and that's where our heart is. Absolutely, yeah. Go ahead. You're making some great points.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, because a lot of people in the more, let's just call them science-based circles, or the database circles, they're like, oh, these two things can't interact. But I think it's important, especially when you look at something like Christianity at its core or other faiths. A huge part of it is describing like what's outside of this, let's call it, container of the universe. So science is very, very good at trying to find more truths of what's based inside the container. But things like Christianity, they can help explain or help give you a perspective on what's possible outside of the container. So they don't necessarily go against each other. And when we talk more about the spiritual side, it can give you a little bit more of an idea of like who we potentially are as self, because there's so many different thought experiments out there, like what is self, like the one thought experiment where it's like, if you slowly replaced one part on the ship, once the every single part was replaced, is that the same ship, is it a different ship? And then people start talking about, oh, if we teleported and you basically had to go from one place to another and you were rematerialized, is that you, is that not you? um, Same thing, like, if what's another, well, if someone completely clones you and there's two of you, which one's you? So I think it's really interesting how we can start to ask ourselves, like, what is self? And some of these different belief systems can help us kind of expand just the way that we interact with this world. So I think that they go hand in hand, Pastor. I think that these two lenses, one or both could be ignored. You could just think about something else. You could think about the paint on the wall, or you could think about both at the same time. You could think about whatever you want. But I believe that there are multiple lenses to view reality, to view ourselves, and it would be a disservice to us if the goal is to seek truth, be better, expand, to at least not acknowledge them and dive deeper. So that's a good question.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what you're talking about, what Timar was talking about, guys, is the ship of Theseus. So it was a bit of a thought experiment that as the ship aged, and you replaced different rotten boards at the ship, eventually, if you replaced enough of them, at what point does it cease to be the ship of Theseus? It's a ship of something else. And so I want to go back to what Matthias and Roman said about their own journey, and ask them, what do you think about the importance of leaving some things behind? But then, and this is key, because I think this does get a little bit into the philosophy of life, if you will, the spirituality of life or whatever. But not only how important it is to maybe leave some things behind, but then make sure there are parts of you that you don't leave behind. Parts of you that you don't leave behind. Because otherwise it's like teleportation. You know, you wake up and you think, gosh, who is this person? And let me just say that I think that can happen either way. It can happen in a positive way. It can happen in a negative way. So many people leave so much of themselves behind when they're engaged in addictions, alcoholism, drug use, pornography, gambling, social media addictions, whatever. You're leaving parts of yourself behind. When you're doing things in your relationship that you shouldn't be doing, when you're not honoring those relationships. And let me just tell you, I am so glad that throughout Scruffy's life, and here he's, he's the fifth member of our show today. Let me introduce you to my study buddy, Scruffy. He would have been 17 years old here coming up fairly soon in a few months. He just made it through so many difficult things in his life. And man, what a faithful, faithful little puppy dog he was. But I am glad that I did not neglect getting on the floor, as busy as I always am. And if you're fully engaging in life, you're always going to be busy. But I didn't neglect getting on the floor on my knees, wrapping my arms around him, hugging him until he grunted, putting my face on his fuzzy, furry little ear, and saying good morning. Always did that. I didn't neglect feeding him, playing with him. We had a tussle in the bed every night. Last night was the first night in, nearly 2 decades that I didn't do that. But I'm glad I didn't neglect it. There are things about you and about your relationships. Be careful not to neglect the things that make you, make your relationships what they are. But Roman and Matthias, one of you guys take it away. What do you think about the importance of, leaving some things behind, but some things you don't neglect those. You bring those forward with you.
Yeah.
Matthias,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, I go ahead. Let me think a minute about it. The topic of leaving something behind. Let me tell you a story. I think some of us may know this story already. Some of us won't. So you may know the story of the two monks wandering through the forest, and they came to a beautiful woman standing on a river. And because they sometimes had sworn a vow to chastity, the younger monk ignored the woman, and the older monk saw that she cannot cross the river, and realized it, and gave her his hand and took her up in her arms and carried her across the stream. And once they reached the other side, he gently dropped her. She smiled, said thank you, and both walked on. And the younger monk mumbled and was still and didn't say a word for a while, and in his mind went his thoughts on and on. Why does the older monk did such a thing? We vowed to never touch a woman, and he does it, and what was going on here? And he got angrier and angrier over the time, and finally he asked him, the older monk, how could you do that? How could you even look to her? And the older monk, surprised and smiled, and with great kindness asked, who of both of us still carrying her? And I think it renders a beautiful picture about leaving something behind, not only physical, but in our relationship to the world too. How can we manage to evolve from being the young monk to the older monk in being able to leave something behind and act in a way like the old monk, to never interfere with the bad thoughts about it, but to do good in the world nevertheless.
Do good in the world nevertheless. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that story. What a wonderful, wonderful story about what we decide to carry with us and how we carry it. Thank you so much. I want to go to Roman. And Roman, in your journey, in your transformation, what are some things that you, if you don't mind sharing, that you left behind? But what are some of those important things that you decided you weren't going to leave behind? You're going to take them with you because that kind of became part, an important part of who you are. What do you think?
So in my life, like my life is driven by my curiosity. So I want to become the best version of myself, and I analyze the world and do everything necessary to propel myself towards that goal. So anything that doesn't fit gets left behind. Like I don't care what is it. If even if I love it, or if I have habits, or if I am used to it, if it doesn't suit my path, I just let it go. So like efficiency is very important for me, and I'm curious to go through these things and to discover what am I capable of doing to become my best version. So I'm not uh, attached to anything. I can change anything in a second. Like if I understand that something doesn't suit me well, I just let go of it. I don't have any habits or any like bad habits or any attachments or stuff like that. It sounds kind of robotic, but it requires by efficiency. So
So what do you do with a quick follow up? What do you do when one of those habits start to sneak in, or rather, how do you avoid the unhealthy habits that so many stumble on?
what for example?
Oh, I don't know. Poor eating, poor physical fitness, poor thought patterns, poor relationship patterns. How do you avoid some of those?
Oh, okay. So you see, like the moment I understand that it's a bad habit, it stopped being a habit. Like if I understand that it's bad, I can just let go of it. It loses control over me. When I don't understand, when I don't notice something, I can do some inefficient bad things, and if I don't notice them, they are bad habits which control me in some way. But I analyze everything I do like constantly, very frequently, and if I notice something inefficient or bad, harmful that I'm doing, I just catch it, and then I come up with a way to let it go. Because I understand that I need to go fast and I need to be efficient. Otherwise, I will not be able to achieve my goal. You see, like I'm goal driven. I want to come to the destination I set up for myself. Like I need to be there in my lifetime, and I have very limited time. So I try to be as efficient and go as fast as I can. This is why, like, I don't have other choices. I don't have time to get rid of a bad habit in 1 year or something. Like I understand this habit is bad, and with one click, I never do that again. Like never. It's just the decision which changes everything.
It really does. And do you have a tip, trick, or technique that you might recommend to us that works in cutting those habits off at the root and
Yes.
not letting them take root? Yeah, please.
So when you are just living your life and you are not going anywhere, many different things control your life. It may be habits, it may be people around you, it may be circumstances, pleasure, and stuff like that. Because it's not important. You are not doing anything. You are not going anywhere. So nothing important is happening. You are just in some kind of routine which is comfortable for you because somehow you get used to it, let's say. But when you have a goal, like anyone, it doesn't matter who, if you just give a very important goal to someone, that person starts focusing on that goal, and they start moving toward that goal, and automatically everything aligns around that goal. Your thoughts which were random start to disappear, and only thoughts aligned with that goal start appearing in your mind. You see, all the actions, you start thinking like, if I don't do this, I will lose. What I need to do to win, to achieve my goal, and like everything changes. And I personally don't need any specific methods or therapies or tricks, hacks, or I just look at my goal, I focus there, and then think, what can I do to achieve that? And everything aligns. When I go to the gym, I get maximum motivation because I want to be jacked. It is my goal. So I don't need to motivate myself or set up some routines or habits, anything. Like nothing matters. I just want to be jacked. I go into the gym and do my best. With the food, exactly the same thing. If I will eat bad food, why am I eating bad food? Like for pleasure? At first, like good food also can give me pleasure, but I don't eat for pleasure. I eat because I need it to achieve my goal. You see, it propels me. If I eat bad food, I'm just impeding myself, and it is not logical. Why should I impede myself? Because of pleasure, because of habits? I don't. I don't think so. You see, I can do it differently. Like some people don't see it this way because they have some reasons, and I have only one thing. This is my goal. I will do everything possible to achieve it, to be efficient. That's my philosophy. So
I love that. I love that because as you're speaking, what I'm thinking of is a target. And guys and gals, what happens when you have a target is your brain starts working on a pathway, a trajectory to hit that target. To hit that
Yeah.
target. My target is to move forward in life, to do things that have high value, to make a difference in all the ways that I can make a difference. I can't change the world, but I can change the small circle that I decide to step into. And I make sure that the change begins inside that circle. So when you have a target, the way Roman was talking about, a bullseye, then your brain starts manufacturing the stepping stones to get you to that target. You don't have to figure out every stepping stone. Just figure out the next one. If you got two stepping stones figured out, then you're probably ahead of me because this chess game of life is not 5 or 10 moves ahead. It's a couple of moves at a time. The important thing is a direction to go, a direction to go. And we talked earlier, and TMR brought this up, about downloading proper habits. I hope that you caught this, but Roman was talking about very much the same thing, deciding which habits to download and then focusing in on the value of those versus the value of the things that will get in the way of those goals. And so I love what Torsten said. Uh, uh, said direction to go. Yeah. By all means, go. By all means, do. Sometimes it's don't just sit there, do something, but sometimes it's don't just do something, sit there. Yeah, I don't mind taking a break, but even my breaks have a purpose in them. It is to catch my breath. It is to refocus my mindset. It is to ponder about important things like my relationships. Sometimes it is to remember the honor of having been in those relationships, like with my study buddy Scruffy. The story about Scruffy is I was really behind in reports. I do lots and lots of reports. And I knew I was just going to have to buckle down and pull an all-nighter to get the darn things done. At the time, Scruffy was living outside with Muffin, our 140-pound lab, and Lucy, who was like Scruffy's mother. Um, and they'd all gone to bed in their dog houses. I was on the back patio, and I looked up, and here comes this little messy, dirty furred puppy that we had adopted from one of the humane animal societies in town. And he was so tiny, but he got out of bed and he hopped up. He was very spry back then. He hopped up on the love seat sitting to my left out on the patio. And I thought, wow, what is he doing? I thought he wanted a treat or something. He was simply coming there to be with me and give me his companionship. And I was there until daybreak. I was there until 5:30 in the morning. It started to get a bit cold, but he didn't leave. And I thought, wow, he could have left and gone and spent the night in his warm bed with Muffin and Lucy, but he didn't. He stayed right there. I went and I got a towel and I wrapped it around him, and he cuddled up in the towel. I think he finally did go to sleep, of course, but he stayed there all night long through all those reports. I don't think I ever did an all-nighter after that, but I think even if I did, he would have been there at my side. And so because I found value in his service, and man, what a service that was, because that really helped me to get through the night. It would have been a long night without him. That it really helped me to think, gosh, who in my life could I be of service to, and come along beside of them, irregardless of the cold or the heat or the discomfort or the soreness, or maybe having something more comfortable I could do. How can I be of service? And so that's one of my targets, is to help. By all means, help. You'll never lose out, even if you're not paid for it, even if it's tough, even if you don't get a hug, even if you don't get a pat on the back, even if you don't have a lot of fanfare. By all means, find a way to help in your life. And at the end of your life, you will have no idea of how many lives that you changed. Scruffy did that. He was my therapy dog. Not mine. I mean, I guess he was mine. But he would sit between my legs under my desk while I was doing therapy. And I don't know, sometimes he just would come out and go and sniff and allow some of the clinical patients. I do both. I do life coaching and clinical work, behavioral health work. And I've had patients who would sit and hold him in their lap the entire session. And I've had some sessions that lasted for 3 hours, and he would come alongside of them, and they would cry, and their tears would fall into his fur, and they would leave probably getting more good from what he did than from what I did. Folks, by all means, help. Let that be one of your targets. And I appreciate Torsum. Thank you for that. Yeah, Muffin. He was a big muffin, 140 pounds. I kid you not. And good to see you, Lady Wings. Guys, we're going to be here for about the next 30 minutes. And so don't hesitate to drop something in the chat. Torsten said leaders are those who don't have many followers or don't need to, but who take the lead. And so, take the lead in your life. You may not see who's following. You may never have any idea who's following. But see, that's not really your job. Your job is to be a leader in your life. And again, you just don't know how many people you could help. But as Clarence the Angel in the wonderful, wonderful Frank Capra movie, It's a Wonderful Life, starring Jimmy Stewart, said, you also never know how big a hole you leave by your absence. So many people today are leaving a big hole because they could help, but they don't. They could serve, but they don't. They could support somebody, but they don't. We have become a society that is so concerned on numero uno, keeping our own head above the water, that we fail to realize the best way for us to be buoyed up is to help others. Often you're in the best position to help people that you don't even know. Well, guys, we're going to move on here to the next topic here, and I wanted to check in with TMR and his thoughts so far, and then we're going to go to Roman and talk a bit about the warrior mindset. He's shared a bit on that, but TMR, why don't you actually share with us, what I put in here in the show notes? I called it the raw side of thought work. What do you think is the basics of getting your thoughts in order and being a great curator of healthy thought processes?
Oh, I love this question. So I obviously do some coaching as well myself. I have a couple one-on-one clients. I've done a few group coaching environments. But one of the things I like to talk about is how, well, I like to acknowledge the fact that our thoughts are not us. I think that's a huge thing that we can take advantage of, that we can basically just look at them. We can be like, okay, this is what it is, but what will I do with it? And that's kind of like one of my driving, I guess you could say, principles in life is that what am I going to do with what I have access to? And our thoughts are not an exception to that. Our thoughts, they could be anything we want them to be, and they could be nothing. So I like to kind of give people the other tool where if you don't know where to start, if you kind of have an idea where you want to go, goals you want to achieve, which I think goals need to be designed carefully, because if you just aim for goals and you hit them, then what? I think it's important to aim for things that can grow with you rather than always just aiming for numbers, things I need to achieve, I need to get, like physically get. I think it's very important to kind of aim for the values first. Like who is the person? Because that person evolves, but a goal doesn't. You have to make a next goal, unless the goal is obviously very broad. So something that I like to talk about is that you can kind of do a daily audit, or you can take a daily inventory. And what you can do is you can even have someone outside of you do this, but they don't get to hear the thoughts that you have. But keep track of what you do on a daily basis, as many different things you can. And you can maybe do it like once a week, a couple times a week, whatever's convenient. You don't want to completely just derail everything, stop being a parent, not go to work. Like, obviously don't do that. But if you're trying to work towards something, if you're trying to achieve something, you got to figure out what thoughts, what actions, what behaviors, what is happening right now. Because many of us think that we are having productive thoughts, think we're doing productive things, moving towards some potential goal that we've at least consciously designed for ourselves. But if you actually were a third person perspective, let's say you put yourself in the place of God, and you could see everything that you were thinking, doing, whatever, you would probably see a very different story. And that's something that I didn't fully understand many years ago, but I do now, where many of our patterns obviously go to the unconscious. We carry them out because we've been doing it, we've been thinking it. But if we were to actually be more conscious when these things happen, you'll notice that the show is a little bit deeper than we once realized. So take an inventory of your day. Let's take this for example. I always make it easy. Let's say that you want to, or you have the belief that you value water. Water is my favorite drink. I love drinking water. I could recommend it to all my friends. But if you take an inventory and you look at the last day, what actually happened? Oh, I started my day off, grabbed a coffee. Then about an hour later, nice little Coca-Cola. And then, I had my second cup of coffee. Oh, hey, let's have a little sip of water here. I was just thinking about it. Oh, I love water. And then after that, you go to the gym and maybe you have an electrolyte drink or whatever. And when you make it to the end of your day, you're like, I loved water. I remember that time I picked it up. I was thinking about it. It's great. But if you actually had the raw data of what happened, you would notice that your belief that, water's my favorite drink is incorrect. Because if it was your favorite drink, then you would most likely be reaching for that over everything else. So that simple understanding, I've used it and I've helped share it because it's one of the most actionable things you can do. It goes in tandem with journaling. Get data on the paper, because if you can separate yourself from your bias, from your opinions, and you can actually start to see what's going on, then you can give yourself a next step. You don't need to have every single step that comes after it, but you can give yourself that next step, and using data, probabilities, whatever you want to call it, it can help you do that. It can take you outside of yourself so you can actually be, your mentor for that moment, whatever you want to call it. But that's what I want to throw in there.
Wow, that's great. It can be your mentor in the moment, your mentor in the moment. Let me skip over to Matthias and get some feedback on that. How do you perceive, what do you think about this warrior mindset thing? And what do you think about the need for people to develop maybe a tough mindset?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful approach to life. Um, I think it won't fit everybody because we are at several different stages in life. But nevertheless, if you want to go there and don't know how to achieve such a steady view and make everything uh, seems easy, like Roman does, I want to share another story. Um, we all may know from the common consciousness that writing everything down may help and may change behavior, like journaling or something like that. But I want to draw your attention in another direction. Um, Writing something down make your thoughts physical, and they have a very your writing has a very profound energy to change your state and to change the direction in which you're going. Um, Back in some decades ago in the Korean War, in the aftermath, there were several uh, prisoners taken, and the Korean prisons were led by strength and physical torture, and everything around uh, was driven around strength and brutality. Which in Chinese prisons, they were led some kind of different. The wardens were distant. They were the prisoners were taken to regularly long interrogations, and they seemed to have more or less a touch of conversations there. And it turns out that the soldiers were gently forced into admitting even the tiniest issues against the US, such as to say the US isn't perfect in this or that way. And from this point on, the Chinese forced them to write those things down. They forced them to write them down. They should make essays out of it, read it loud every day to the other prisoners. And so they slowly and steady won the race, because in the aftermath of the Korean War, many prisoners decided to stay in the Chinese country, um, supported communism, and went against the US. And all because this self-enforcing behavior loop from from within the prisons. And this was one issue because why the MK Ultra program was started, because the US was so suspicious about it. How could Chinese put such a deal? And if you start out and haven't set your desired behavior, it may sound too easy, but it's working to write it down what you want. From your own standpoint, make a story out of it. Imagine what you want to be and do this every day. Write it down 20, 25 times, and you will see after a month you have a habit loop you are very proud of.
Repetition is programming. So beautiful story, Myth. I had not heard that story before. I thought you were going a different direction, but that is masterful. I appreciate that. When you write things down and you read it back to yourself, it's really like you're coaching yourself. You're programming yourself. You're really putting your fingers on the keyboard of the mind. People talk about others pressing their buttons. I don't agree with that. I think you're pressing your own buttons based on what you decide to attend to. So when you decide to attend to this person's words, then that's because you're echoing those words in your mind, but you don't have to. And when you decide to succumb to your own negative, sabotaging, cognitive distortions, that is what I call a thought selection process. Thoughts, TSP, teaspoon, thought selection process. Be very careful, be very intentional with the thoughts, as Matthias said, that you decide to repeat. Be an intentional programmer, because if you're not, you're going to program deeply into your brain, encode deeply into the recesses of the subconscious, as TMR noted earlier, some of the worst things. So guys, we're going to be here for about the next 17 minutes. So put your questions in the chat. Love to have interaction here. Lady Wings said that's my favorite movie. Yeah, there's all kinds of wisdom in that wonderful movie. It's a Wonderful Life, and you don't have to wait till Christmas time to watch it. It's in black and white, and it makes it so special. Your son, thank you for being here. Great point. We're not our thoughts, he says. Certainly not. It's our actions that define our character. Yeah, our behavior, our actions proceed out of our deep well of character. What's in the well comes up in the bucket. And Lady Wings says, Matthias, thank you so very much for the story. Lady Wings, it is our pleasure. Guys, go and tell some folks that we are now live, and we'll be here taking questions for about the next 15 minutes. And until we get some, we're going to continue with the conversation here. I'd like to finish up the show talking about mindset in real life. My dad had a term called putting shoe leather on it. And so let's put some shoe leather on it. Let's get down to basics, down to the nitty gritty, down to some real life, real world advice. And before we go there, my friend Justin, Results French, Results is his middle name. Great panel, great way to start the Monday. Thoughts lead to feelings, lead to actions, lead to results. Yeah. Our thoughts are the origination point of both emotion and action. Things don't move themselves. You know, life is not telekinesis. You move your body based on your thought processes, and your body is going to go in the direction of your thought processes. And if you say, oh, no, wait a minute, Dr. Heath, I want to get on the treadmill, but I find myself laying on the couch eating a honey bun. Well, that's because you have a higher value somewhere in your subconscious that laying on the couch and avoiding the discomfort of cardio is what's more worthwhile. So you're going to keep on doing that. Our feet always follow our values, and that's the side of our thought processes. Sam Alanchi, the pastor, says, observation, water is essential to life. Without water, we couldn't even make coffee. Yeah, you know, imagine spending a life subhydrated. Most people aren't dehydrated, but they're subhydrated. I've already had my tea, and in this cup is just water. Water, the secret elixir of life. And so, one of those toeholds that you can get in your life is start something simple today. It could be making the bed. It could be getting up and going for a short walk. It could be just getting up and taking care of your puppy because you won't always have your puppy. It could be making sure that about every 90 minutes you drink 8 to 12 ounces of water. I have 1.25 gallons of water a day. My first glass of water after I went to bed last night was at 1:30. And then my next was at 4:30, and then I go back to bed, or at 1:30, go back to bed. At 4:30, I drink the water and I get up, and now I'm drinking more water. Water's healthy for your skin, healthy for your joints, healthy for your noggin. Get out there and drink water. And so thank you so much, Pastor. I appreciate that, and the humor and the laugh, and just thank you guys for being here. Again, drop some thoughts and some questions in the chat, and I'd like to get Roman's take on, some of these, mindset tips for real life. Again, Roman, let's put some shoe leather on it. how can we encourage our guests, our listeners today? Just one or two things. Just get out there and get it done, man.
Okay. So, because I will share how I think and how my mind operates, what I've discovered for myself. Because the world is so complex, to understand it, we need to simplify and put things into some simple categories. So I view it this way. I think that life has important areas, 5 areas, which are physical health, mental state, communication, relationships, wealth, and purpose. So these are the 5 categories which I see as important. And if we progress in these categories, we will feel better. Our life will have more meaning, and we will be happier. So the more efficient we get in these categories, the happier we will become. This is what I use to guide my progress towards my mind goal, which is becoming the best version of myself. So whatever I do every day, I analyze like, do am I on the path towards progress in these categories? Whatever I do, if something impedes it, I just leave it out. If it helps, I do it, and everything that helps me to progress in these areas is good for me, and I enjoy it. Like everything, even if it's hard, it's gym, cardio, or something. When I run and I feel pain in my joints and in my lungs and my heart, I don't view it as bad, because this is what I need to do to progress through my life to wherever I want to go. So it can't be bad. It feels bad for a moment, maybe, but it is good. I understand that it is good, and I don't care what it feels like. The main thing is I understand it is good, and I'm doing it to come closer to my goals. This is my mindset, and I view everything through that lens.
I love that. I love that. And I want to really, really zone in on what he just said by pointing out a term called acclimation. So the more you engage in something, even if it doesn't taste good, your taste buds will follow, and you will eventually come to prefer that food. I really never preferred cauliflower. I started eating it about 3 weeks ago. I love the stuff, you know. Gosh, why'd I wait so long? You know, cauliflower. Where have you been my whole life? And exercise is the same way. So many, foods that may be healthy for you, movement that may be good for you, exercises, cardio, weightlifting, things like that. They're uncomfortable. The preference doesn't come before the doing. Do the doing, and then the preference develops on the heels of the doing. Don't expect to prefer a hard thing before the repetitions of doing the hard thing. And the more you repeat, the more your brain acclimates to that, really habituates that. And yeah, Sheila, great to see Sheila Slick here today, a wonderful account on X, and often a guest of Monday Mindset Mojo. And she'll be a guest coming up. So yeah, acclamation, and so acclaim, make famous in your mind. Make famous in your mind the doing of hard things. Congratulate yourself for the doing of hard things. Don't hesitate to share out to people, because you're hearing your voice. Support yourself when you're sharing out to people. Hey, here's this hard thing that I'm doing. And the reason I shared the story of Scruffy this morning is because this is, this is tough. It's really, really tough. And I share it out because it's a hard thing I'm doing. It was a hard thing to get out of bed this morning, as I said earlier, but I did it because it's a hard thing. It was a hard thing to go on with the show. The show must go on, but I do it because it is a hard thing. And I remember, the newscast from JFK talking about going to the moon and saying, we do these things not because they're easy, but because they are hard. And the most valuable things in life, I hope you notice, do tend to be the hardest things in life. There's so many people following the wide path of the wide path of the comfortable. I have a thing out here called a comforter. It's a big thick blanket. So many people spend so much of their time being suffocated in the comfortable of the easy, but you don't have to be that way, because the more you put off the hard, the harder even the easy things become. The more you put off the harder even the easy things become. We're going to wrap our show up here in about 8 minutes. Drop a question in there, and I want to hear what Matthias has to say about some real life, shoe leather level things that our folks can get out there and do today. Maybe some things that you found that worked for you.
Yeah, of course. I think the comfort zone is something like a social construct which other people put upon us to keep us stuck and in their level of comfortable perception of us. Because there's this concept of free-layered self within us. When we are born as childs, we are innocent, we don't have any opinions about anything, and we can label this as the authentic self. And we grow older, and if we assume to be programmed in only a lovable human way, we may show our authentic self even if we are adults, but this doesn't work that way. We are grown up, we have our parents, our environment, the kindergarten, the schools, the teachers, and everyone put their opinions about us. And we are constantly judged and form something which we are calling the false self upon us, which we are ashamed of, which we feel guilty of when we do some things we like to do, but are told to not do such things. And to hide this, we form another self, which we can call the present or the presenting self, through which we are showing ourselves, presenting ourselves to the world, and through which the world perceives us. And our job in life is to strip the upper two selves away to get to our authentic self fully integrated. And that's what I would call live your passion. It's not what others may think about living your passion, because it has this connotation of do what you think, do what you do what's easy, but that's not my definition. It's the true authentic self. That's what we are meant to be. That's the goal of life, in my opinion. And to get there, I found for myself, I'm a very visual person. Even sounds play a huge role too, but I'm visual, and I work with imagination a lot. And for my work as a hypnotist, it's really important to be aware of the pictures and images and even films you play in your head, and you can work with it. And if you want to change behavior, become aware of it. How do you talk to yourself? How you present this image in your head? And if you want to make something disappear, to change a behavior you don't like, you just imagine your mental film, make it from film to image, make it dull, make it smaller, move it far away from you, make it black or white, out of focus, blur it, and just take 1, 2, 3, 4 steps away from it. And to enforce a behavior, do the opposite. Imagine how you are doing something, make it from an image into a movie, play it in your head, make it larger, closer, intensify the colors, and make it louder, make it with sound, and get fully immersed in it. And that's basically the shortcut to your subconscious mind to change a behavior. And that's
That's
what
amazing. I love it.
taught
I
me
love it. And so you're
ahead
very
in
much
life.
talking about cognitive science here. You know, it's we can call it hypnosis, but it's really very much cognitive science, because to put a
Mhm.
finer edge on that, if you're thinking, folks, about grabbing that next drink of alcohol, you can realize that's a script, a movie, and then you can imagine that movie on the screen of the mind, and you can imagine that movie on the screen across the room, and then you can imagine leaving that room and that movie is still playing. You don't have to turn the movie off. The movie is still playing. You're just in a different room. And then you can turn on a different TV in that new room that you're in. And that room is a room of health, or I'm sorry, the TV screen, the script on it is a script of health, a script of wellness. And so I put up a quote here from me, and it's all about self sacrifice. I'm going to give you a new definition of self sacrifice. Which self do you need to sacrifice so that your healthiest self can rise to the top and thrive? Which self that is sabotaging you, that is drinking when you know you shouldn't be drinking, stuffing food when you know you shouldn't be stuffing that food? Which self is speaking unkindly, discourteously to people in your life that really do matter to you? What self is doing that? And feed the other one. You know, feed the self that speaks words of life. Feed the self that drinks the water of life. Feed the self that embraces all the healthy, hard things in life. Well, guys, we're about to run out of time here. I want to thank you for being here, and I really appreciate what Torsum had to say. There's much this generation needs to block out to address and reflect on keeping it simple. Torsum, yes, absolutely. Yeah, guys, decide what's noise, decide what's static, and focus on what's not. You know, if you notice your heart rate ramping up, ask yourself, gosh, is my heart rate ramping up because this is healthy or unhealthy? Is it just Scruffy? His heart would beat so hard. He would be so excited. He was so full of energy. One of my fondest memories I'll leave you guys of him was just a few days ago. It was at the end of last week that his mommy was gone, taking care of her dad. And I have several graduation gowns. You know, you wear those things to graduate from college. So I have several of them. They're silky. Scruffy loved to dig in them. Now he ruined the bottoms of them. I mean, they're all picked apart and everything, but they were so silky he could dig until he was out of breath, and he'd be so excited. He'd run from my closet to my wife's closet, from her closet to my closet. But he also had a heart disease, you know, older puppy, and he would get out of breath very easily, but it didn't let that stop him. We would run and chase back and forth and run and chase back and forth. And so this is me pouring into his life and him pouring into mine the most important thing, and that is relationship. At the end of your life, you'll see that the most important thing has always been relationship. And so, what self do you need to tackle, to conquer, to minimize in that movie script of your mind that is self-serving, where the time could be better spent serving somebody else? TMR, let's go to you, and then see if our other friends have any final words, and we'll wrap it up for today. We're going to be back in about 8, 9, 10, 11, 3.5 hours with Bryce, who's going to join us, TMR, on Midday Mindset, talking about how to have the mystical mindset of a Roman emperor. And we'll be talking about that at 12 o'clock U.S. Central Standard Time today. So you guys join us. That is a live audio space, not video, but audio. TMR, what do you think in wrapping up today?
Looking forward to Midday Mindset. I'll make it quick. So for me, I think it's always good to have things that you can like default to, and that's what we do naturally. The phrase "you'll fall to the level of your systems" is extremely important to keep track of. So I try to always remind myself when it comes to making a decision, and this has been curated because of a lot of your teachings, Dr. Heath, and this is like the main principle behind any coaching that I do. Decisions should be made logically, pointed towards your value system or your values. That's it. But what's behind that now is you're going to have to take some time and design your value system that you choose, because you have two value systems. You have the true one, which is more subconscious, your actual value system. If someone else was to if God was to observe you, the omnipresent being, let's say, and they know who you were, they could say, okay, this is their value system. Then there's the value system that you could either consciously recite. So like, oh yeah, this is what I value. And then let's say there's the conscious value system that you deliberately designed for your life. So any sort of coaching or therapy, from my perspective, is you're trying to shift your subconscious value system towards that one that you've decided for yourself. But when it comes to making decisions in the moment, you're not trying to necessarily based off of your subconscious value system, aka what makes sense right away, like what are you going to default to, but it's the value system that you've specifically designed. So I made a post a while ago where I listed out some of my core values, which I think is a great starting point. And of course, a true value system, it's a giant web. They crisscross back and forth to each other. They could be broken down into multiple different, sub values and situational values. So I think it's important that we take some time. We were talking about journaling, or you could even sit with AI and you could have a verbal conversation and design the value system that you want to uphold. So then when you get to fall down to that default, if you can understand, decisions should only be made logically when pointed to my value system, you know what you're pointing at. So I talk about it like you want to be good at designing the law, aka like you want to design a great constitution for yourself, but then you also need to be good at enforcing the law. So you can't just have a great law. You can't just be good at enforcing the law. You got to have both. You don't need to be perfect tomorrow, but just start working towards it. So design a good value system and figure out how to get better at enforcing it. So that's my biggest like actionable advice. Just start chipping away at that, and I think you'll start to see some better and better results.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let your values lead the way. Values first. Values lead the way. Matthias and Roman, let's guys. Where can folks get in touch with you? We are live streaming to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and inside the Mindset Masterclass. Please head over, join Mindset Masterclass. If you join now, it's a free lifetime membership. It is school.com/mindset. School is spelled SKOOL, school.com/mindset. Love to see you over there. We go deeper into conversations over there. And so I hope to see you in Mindset Masterclass. You can find me, of course, on X at therapy_bites. Let's go to Roman, Matthias, and wrap it up with TMR. How can folks best get in touch with you guys?
Yes, you can follow me on Twitter, on X. I post lots of interesting things. And also, we wanted to talk about fasting, and we had no time. So maybe we can do that next time. Or yes. So
We're going to do it, Roman. Yes, sir. What a packed conversation. But we need to get together and do a whole Monday Mindset Mojo on health and fitness. So I will get that scheduled.
yeah.
Matthias, how do folks get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can reach out to me via X. I'm there the most of my time. Regarding the socials, you can drop me a DM or follow my posts there.
Fantastic. And TMR.
Well, at the Mental Reboot, pretty much everywhere except, I guess, LinkedIn and YouTube, because I'm not posting on YouTube yet, let's just say. But I'm mainly on X, so that's where you'll find me.
We're on X. Everybody's on X. You guys join X. Join me in the Mindset Masterclass, school.com/mindset. For now, if you join, it's a free lifetime membership, so don't pass that up. skool.com/mindset. I really appreciate you being here. My wonderful, dearly departed study buddy, Scruffy. Scruffy, look here, buddy. So all these people watching you today, man, you're on camera in front of 600 people. 600 plus people right here. A lot of them are on X, but we're have a lot of folks on also LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube and the Mindset Masterclass. Scruffy, my friend, man, everybody loves you, and you know your dad does. Thank you guys for your sympathies. I appreciate that very much. No matter what happens, next foot, doesn't matter. Left foot, right foot, just take the next step, whatever foot you take it with. Just take a step. Motivation is based in your values. Once you have a motive, a reason to do something, once you have a motive, then the next step happens. That's how that works. So get out there, find your why to take that next step, and keep on taking that next step no matter what. Even better yet, do it in honor of somebody who no longer is able to take those next steps. My next steps today are going to be in honor of, which way is it? That little guy right there, Scruffy. And so he is up there chasing bones. And buddy, you keep up at it. I'm going to live a long life, but I will see you sooner than you could possibly imagine. And yeah, I do believe that all dogs go to heaven. Thank you guys for being with me. I really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.